Okay, so let's work this actual key art here. Um, Again, when I do these renders, I always try to have an idea of how far I want to take this, right? Um, how much detail I want to have, how much photo batching I want to do, the purpose of the actual image, right? And there's also a few things that I keep in mind to things to fix, right? So the main thing right now is to kind of push this whole top area back, like if it was almost in space. It could be part of the planet maybe, but further back, because right now it feels like it's almost over this area here, but I don't want that. I want it to be as far as minimum this mountains back here. So you should have the same value structure. And so if I look here black and white, you can see that it's a little bit darker, has more contrast than the area that I want. And so I want to push it back to this here. So that's sort of the game plan at first, because that's the first apparent thing that I have. And there's not really a lot to do in terms of the midground here, background area, besides this, of course. I think maybe we can do a little bit of photo bash down here to kind of bring maybe some other details as well. I also want to see if I could play a little bit with the hue of the character itself. I don't like this yellowish tone that I'm getting. I'm not super bothered by it, but I want to see if I can play with that. Now the character is blurred right now, so it's going to be a little bit harder to deal with that. Just because we don't want any sharp things happening in here. We want to keep that consistency, but we'll see. Now there's multiple ways that I could do this part, right? One way is just to bring maybe my mist pass, and this is an EXR render, which gives me all these different render passes that I'm getting, right? That I could use for different effects, right? And I've talked about this a lot, a lot. And so I'm just gonna play with these for a little bit and see. So maybe I could use the mist pass. Let's put that on lightened, colorize it. Play with the levels. See, I'm liking what I'm getting there. There's of the value, right? But of course down here it's not really working. So sometimes I like to grab my mist pass, increase the contrast of this. Maybe something like that. And then we'll try that again. Put that on lightning. That's already looking better. It's not gonna be perfect, of course, but I could put a mask on it and then just get rid of the areas that I don't want, like down here. And so now this is helping me push that back even further, right? I could also grab this mist pass, go to my channels, control click the layer, copy it, create a new channel, paste that, and now this is a selection. And so now I can create a new layer, control click that new channel, maybe grab this color here, and then just put that color everywhere. And so now you can see that it applied the color based on the distance, on the values of this channel here, which is a great effect. But it's already looking like I like what it's doing, especially with this part here. I want to be mindful about the values here, not to get too far apart. I'm not super concerned about the general color because I'm gonna do a color correction right at the end. Just to kind of tweak it a little bit. I don't mind this, but I want to tweak it a little bit more, especially down here. So now you see we go from here to here. I lost some of that nice saturated blue, which I really like. But maybe that's something maybe we can do in post, or so I think if we bring that back in. We can adjust a little bit there. And again, the values are getting a little bit further out, so I could either maybe just grab some of these and then just push that back a little bit. Could also use the same miss pass here. It's gonna push the character from the background even more if I wanted to. I don't think that's going to be a concern on this one, but maybe I'm sort of looking down here. Maybe I want that sort of effect in there, so maybe I can just add that in. Making a nice contrast between the red and the blue here. But again, the colors, I'm not too concerned right now. So again, the other thing is, right now, and we'll do this in post as well, we'll add some noise. But I think now I want to, well, let me experiment with this volume here just to kind of see what I get. Sometimes I like to play with the blending modes of the volume just to kind of see if I get something interesting. Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's getting this bluish sort of tone there. I can change the color. I think this is going to be more of a personal sort of preference for the colors and the value and all that. Because I think there's the multiple options here could work, right? But the important thing is that I'm pushing those asteroids to the back way more than this. I could also maybe even try. I don't know if this is going to work, but maybe we can bring just a little bit of the front part of the asteroid, just a little bit in, just so we know that this part here is closer to us than this part here and this part here by a lot. So we see a little bit of difference. It's just like a little touch. Nothing too crazy. There we go. Now for the character itself, this is gonna be the tricky one. Let's duplicate my mist, invert it, and maybe something like this. I'm gonna copy this and make this a channel as well. And now I'm gonna use that selection with a hue and saturation. Maybe play with the color here a little bit. I'm liking what I'm getting there. And I could always duplicate this, and then now I can even paint the areas that I want from the original color. Maybe some of those highlights to still have that yellowish sort of tone there. Maybe I could use these render passes just to kind of bring a little bit of more detail there. Just a little bit there. And so little by little we start defining some of these areas. And again, it doesn't require a lot unless we go really deep into it. But you know, this is a place where I can be happy with it. And let's see why this is like that. And so I think next I do want to work a little bit this down area here. Again, I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do, but I want to clean up a little bit, maybe do some photo batching here and maybe up here in this area here. All this area back here is probably gonna stay the same, right? Like in the back. But I'm gonna bring some photos in here. Probably just do a time lapse and just work that area just a little bit. Really not that much. Just realized maybe I could do a. Let's see here. Maybe bring some lights into this costume here. Let's see. Just a little touch. I have to blur those out, but maybe we can work it a little bit just like that. Let's do a little bit of blurring here. Just a little bit. There you go. Now sometimes, you know, when you're dealing with 3D, And you have a scene like this where you have such a big space of almost like a flat color. Sometimes you can experiment with if you have like some texture brushes. I'll do this on a separate layer. But you can grab a texture brush that is very subtle. Not like that. Just grab a color that is very close to the general color here. So I'm trying to pick what sort of texture brush you want. That might be too much color dynamics. And you can sort of bring just a little bit of variation to that, and you can probably barely see it. Actually, that might be too much. Just looking at here on the screen here, and it's just a little bit of texture into what you have already, but it's just a very tiny, oops, tiny bit. And that sort of helps breaking down the 3D-ness of this, right? If you want to have a little bit of that sort of texturing, painterly sort of effect. And I think with maybe this brush, I can even add a few of more pieces here. Right, and so we can also clean up a little bit in this particular case. Maybe deal with the shapes of this a little bit better. You just have to be careful that you don't go too much overboard, that then the painting itself or the image itself is going to start looking too painterly, and then you have to do that throughout the whole image, which is not what we want. We just want a little bit of that effect. You can help breaking down some of these really hard edges of the 3D just a little bit in some areas, right? Just a little bit. Maybe you need to simplify some shapes, right? We have some details here. Here and there, right? And then now we can just continue moving. But again, you know, all this stuff that I just did on this layer doesn't really change the image or the message of the image, right? It's just like little touches and things that you can add. But I might work a little bit of the bottom here with some photo bashing, and then we'll see the end result. So this is the update on this. Let's compare here from our raw render to our last update here. Again, nothing too crazy. Major change was the foreground element here, and then pushing back that asteroid sort of effect. I want to keep it very subtle, right? And so now, once I'm done, every time I'm done with an image, right, I always like to do a sort of like post work on it. Maybe change the colors a little bit, add some grain, etc. This already has, because of the render, some grain into the image, right? Which I'm not gonna add more or too much to this already. This already has a nice grain to it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control A to select everything, Control Shift and C to copy, and then paste Control V. And what that does is gives me one layer with everything in it. And so now I'm going to make a copy of that so you can see it here. And I'm going to make those changes on this one, and then I can compare to my previous version. And so I'm going to go into Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And then here I'm going to go to Effects. It's just a little bit of grain throughout the whole image. Just a little bit there. There you go. I'm gonna add some clarity. Now I'm gonna go into my curves and see how much I need of this. I'm gonna need a lot of this, so just a little bit there. And now I'm gonna go into color grading. This is where, if I want to change some colors or accentuate some colors, I can do it here. So I'm gonna play with this as well. Now this is supposed to be sort of like a distant planet, not necessarily Earth. We can really go crazy like this, which I really like, actually. To get that sort of yellow tint. So this is where I spend most of the time, right, trying to figure that out. Then I can go into detail and do a little bit of sharpening. And then press OK. So from here to here, right, this brings it closer to the other images that I have on this particular set. So it brings it all together a little bit. We lost a lot of the blue that we were getting from the render, all that nice blue, but it is okay. I'm not too, I don't want to be too married to something like that. And there we go. And so that concludes sort of the process of this. Again, we didn't have to do a lot of painting and adding to it, but this is pretty typical when you have a pretty good 3D. You don't have to do a lot of the 2D side of things, which is great, because I can bump, you know, a lot of images like this fairly quickly once I have the 3D. So I hope that helps during this process, and I'll see you guys in the next one.